right. Well, good. Welcome everybody. Thanks again to the crew for hosting us here, and hope everybody's doing okay. I probably have chat floating around somewhere. He says there's an ample opportunity. I'll figure it out. Oh, there we go. Chat. All right, I got chat on this thing as well, so I'll do what I can to kind of like answer questions while we're talking. Thanks for the beard of the day winner. Yeah, it's currently kind of somewhat more civilized. All right, so let's have a conversation. Give to me. Give to me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. Emma Lazarus wrote that, and it was inscribed upon the side of the Statue of Liberty. And the other part that obviously goes with this is, says he, making sure I get into the right screen, the wretched refuse of your teeming shores. And so the logic here is kind of a simple one. It really is to take a look at a lot of the organizations and the systems and the people that have been forgotten. And we'll kind of get into that as to what I define as the forgotten and the people that unfortunately are getting left behind in this mad rush of security and everything else that we tend to want to try to do these days. However, quick intro for those of you that want to know. Obviously, I am now with, I think it was finally announced today, with Cynet. So it's kind of cool. Chief Security Strategist over there. I'm obviously a researcher, a father of both 2-port and 4-port things, a geek and a hacker. And that last one's fairly important because obviously for a lot of us in the community, it's where we came from. You know, the hackers are the good folks and not necessarily those that need to be taken out, unfortunately. So we're going to have a conversation on that one. Now let's have a conversation on the agenda side. So why are we going to have this conversation? You know, we're all doing a lot of security stuff. We're all seeing what's going on. And, you know, apparently not everything is okay. So we're going to go into that a little bit. We're going to set the scene. We're going to have a conversation about you. So we're looking at the smaller side of the organizations. We're going to have a conversation. So, you know, for those of you that are running Fortune 2000s, welcome to join along. For everybody else, this really is a lot of focus on that. Let's talk about what's going on. What are we seeing in the industry? How are we seeing things going well, and how are we seeing some challenges? And then we're going to have a bit of an introspective look at the industry itself. What's meant to be happening, what should be happening, what obviously isn't happening, and then what do we do about it? So, you know, obviously it's all very well throwing issues and challenges, but it's no bloody good if we don't actually spend some time trying to figure out what do we do about it. Now, before we do that, let's actually pat a few folks on the back. And I kind of want to do this because we spend a lot of time lambasting and challenging the small businesses and small entities. We say, oh, you know, terrible people, you know, are always, you know, supply chains screwed up and everything else. And unfortunately it is. But that's not for want or for lack of trying in some cases. There's about 31 million smaller organizations in the US of A alone. So, I mean, you start looking across the rest of the globe and that number goes up exponentially. And so many of them have spent so many years doing such a good job, they've now run into this digital age headlong. And unfortunately, it's not very pretty in many cases. And so the challenge is obviously there's so many of those organizations, but they're not being focused on from a security standpoint. People aren't paying as much attention to them as they do, say, the larger, in other words, the whale hunting side of the world. Most of the security industry, unfortunately, comes about, gets some money and goes, wow, we're going whale chasing, you know, it's Jonah, basically. I mean, Moby Dick, let's face it. Everybody wants that trophy company up on the wall and they want their entire, you know, the rest of the wall needs to be covered in awards for the, no, quit that bullshit. This is where we actually need to focus on the smaller organizations. The other problem is as well that I find, unfortunately, with our industry and where we do tend to focus is when it all goes wrong. You know, we tend to, unfortunately, gather around like a pack of hyenas. You know, I have referred to our industry occasionally as being ambulance chasers. You'll get the phone call, you know, when you hit the newspaper and something happens, you get the phone call, oh, we could have saved you from all of those problems and agonies. And I kind of want to call bullshit on that, to be honest. Now, the other challenge and the observation at the moment is we are having so many problems and we are having so many incidents, especially again in the smaller organizations, that those of us who have done incident response and those organizations that run incident response, unfortunately, are overwhelmed. I mean, they are literally sitting there going, we can't handle more incidents. We're having problems. We can't deal with them all the time. So what we're now finding is they're like, you know, can you handle this? A couple of the companies I know are handling 50 to 100 incidents every single month, which is ridiculous. It's unsustainable, which obviously means there's a problem. And we know there's a problem, and we've seen there's a problem, but it's quantifying that problem, unfortunately. And we know there's issues because, I mean, you've only got to look at how much money we're spending. I think we're up to spending like X amount of trillion by 2020, and by 2025 it's like 10.5 trillion, you know, in the industry alone, or how much of an attacker is going to pull out of the industry. We ourselves are spending billions. I think last year was 120, 125 billion in the security industry, and yet we're losing millions and millions of records. So something somewhere isn't working. And so the challenge is taking a step back and going, how do we change that and what do we do about it? And when we focus on it, we want to take a look at a lot of the smaller organizations that are out there. Again, you know, we've got the Fortune 2000s, they're great. They've got everybody chasing after them. And yes, it's a conversation that maybe we want to have with these folks. But for me, we look at the supply chain, you know, we look at the global economy that is run by those 31 million organizations out there. And we go, hey, you are part of a solution. There's an amazing solution that runs these things. Problem is, you're also part of the problem. And we know you're part of the problem because unfortunately, when something runs and when something fails, the issues and the challenges can be fairly catastrophic. And we see that all about the time. We see it with risk, and we see why the likes of the government are starting to put CMMC regulations in place. A lot of the larger organizations are now looking at their supply chain going, I need you to become compliant. I need you to go through more security. And unfortunately, a lot of those organizations are going, how the heck do we do this? And why do we do this? And for me, there was a movie, for those of you who've got Rugrats, there was a movie that came out a couple of months ago, the Mulan movie, the latest one. And there's one particular piece in there that I really, really like. There's a quote in there that's partway through the movie. And it talks about how 4 ounces can move 1,000 pounds. And this is where you look at the influences that the smaller companies have on the industry as a whole. You look at how they're interacting with large, you look at how they're interacting within their own like ecosphere, should we say, and how even a smaller organization or even a 2,000 or 3,000 person organization has got so much influence. And unfortunately, when something goes wrong, the consequences are probably larger than they want to admit or larger than anybody wants to admit. So the issues and the catalyst for some of the challenges and the changes are, how do we work with them? How do we actually effectively as a security industry work with them? And before we do that, let's actually see what they're currently doing. Let's have a look at those smaller organizations, and a couple of like tongue-in-cheek images here. And unfortunately, this is the case in many times. It is, unfortunately, the challenges are that so many of them, you look at them in the Active Directory server that's sitting in the corner that hasn't been touched for 20 years, you know, it's there, it works, don't touch it, don't mess with it. Or in this case, you know, the pay to pray kind of attitude. Or unfortunately, what we see is this, the bury head here, which is, it won't happen to me, it hasn't happened to me, it's not going to happen to me. How do I actually do something about it? Hang on a second. Sorry, guys, we have a new puppy in the house, and the new puppy in the house has decided that it's time to actually alert the entire house that it wants to play and wants to do something. So Jen's just going to go deal with that one at the moment. The other challenge, unfortunately, we see a lot in the industry is the blame game. And we see that, unfortunately, in security, but we see that with the security teams, even the smaller security teams inside organizations, when it's development's problem, or it's operations problem, or it's the DBAs, or it's the network, or it's IT's problem. And that's got to change. We're all in this together, whether you like it or not. We're all getting the same paycheck from the same organization. We're all trying to do the same thing. So we have to be better together. And part of that comes into what tools we're choosing together. Part of that comes into what strategies we're using. But it all comes down to, how do we more effectively action and work and do things together? And what do we do from an awareness, and how do we deal with those things? So obviously we need to change. You know, it's a simple conversation, and we're 8 to 10 minutes into this and we've realized we got to change. Well, then let's have a conversation about how we change. Let's get rid of the bullshit. Let's just be perfectly honest about this. Let's actually try to figure out effectively how to see through this. There was an amazing article that was put out by a good friend, and he basically said, look, here's a list of things that vendors say that get the BS meter going off immediately. You know, everything's, we can protect you 100%. We can roll it out inside the first day. We can do all false promises, overpromise, under-deliver. So we as an industry have to do better at that. We as an industry have to look at these smaller organizations and go, let us help you on a maturity side. Let us help you not go down to Best Buy or Micro Center and buy the technology, but let's help you put a strategy in place. Let's actually get rid of some of the bullshit in the acronyms that we have in this industry and start speaking a language that everybody understands. Yeah, exactly. Single pane of glass is another one. Perfect, Jamie. I mean, we'll talk about the consolidation stuff in a minute, and I love the consolidation, but it ain't going on a single pane, let's be perfectly honest. The other one, the accountability. This one's huge. And this one I think has come about. I was on a really cool panel not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago. And one of the CISOs on there had a really good point, which was quite simply, look, you're no longer a vendor. And this was talking to like a couple of us that were on there. You're no longer a vendor. You're part of my company. I hand you something, you become part of the solution and part of the problem, but I have to hand it. I need to work with you so you become part of me. We are intertwined. Each other's actions have a resulting in a net, action and reaction on something else. So we have to be accountable to each other, which is why this accountability comes into it and everything that goes with it, the ethics, the ownership, the trust, the integrity, all those other things. We, the vendors, have to be better at that. We also have to stop lying. Let's be honest with the people that we're talking to. There is no such thing as 100% security. It ain't going to happen. And by the way, it ain't hacker proof either. Trust us on this one. I'm going to get in. I'm going to do things. I'm going to be able to. The question is really simply, how are you going to know? And what are you going to do about it? Those are really the simple ways of looking at these things. So we have to stop this lying. And again, I just literally, it's got announced today on LinkedIn. I'm putting a post out. I joined Cynet because of this and because of a few other things we're going to go through. Nobody's perfect, but it's easier to change things from the inside, especially with an organization that is willing to change. This one I like as well. Again, we look at our industry, we look at the thousands of organizations in the industry and how so many of them just keep following in the same footsteps. They keep chasing the Fortune 2000s. They keep coming up with another, single point solution. They keep looking at a narrow focus and going, this is all I'm going to deal with. And they don't think about the larger picture. And I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of ingenuity for somebody to go, I don't agree with that. I don't want complexity. I want to make it easier. I want to make it simpler. I still want to make it effective. And I want to take the best I possibly can of a couple of different things and integrate them more effectively. And again, part of the reason I'm hanging out where I'm hanging out these days. Oh God, yes, Sam, you have to guarantee you won't get ransomware. Don't even get me started on that one. This is another one, says the guy who's rabbiting on for the next 15, 20 minutes. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth in that ratio for a reason. Shut the hell up when the client is talking and listen to them. We don't do that. We go in, we assume we know what they want. We assume that we can solve all of their problems. We make an assumption that we've got everything we know about their entire industry because we talk to Bob down the corner and we go in and we just do a lot of this and we don't use these things. Something else we have to get better at, which brings me to the soft skills of our industry. How about we change communication? How about we change cooperation and coordination, and especially the collaboration? I don't need another point solution. What I need to do is bring together several of these solutions and more effectively present it. I need to coordinate more effectively. We have incidents. How do you know where to look? How do you know what to look for? How do you know, even if you've got an idea as to what's going on? And the cooperation. Again, there's a reason we have DevSecOps. I'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a reason even inside our industry we have to be better. This is what I like about doing these webinars. It's part of the reason I came on board to the Cynet folks is because we're starting a CISO community. We're going to put one together for the smaller organizations to all come together, Chatham House rules, and exchange information, which brings to the communication. We inside ourselves need to take a different approach as well. Here's what I mean. This is the only slide that came over from last year. I tend to change all my slides out every year, and this is the only slide that made it in through last year into this year's slide. We need to have a different approach. Let's face it, let's be honest. Often, unfortunately, we have led, and we've been led as well by the company going, oh, I need a pen test. Well, absolutely, we'll come and penetrate you. Seriously, what part of our industry did some bright spark think that it was a good idea to knock on somebody's door and go, hello, I'm here to penetrate you? Really, I'm not only am I going to penetrate you, I'm going to penetrate you with Kali, the goddess of devil and death and time and doomsday. And while I'm at it, I'm bringing a pony and a pineapple with me. Apart from being a sick and twisted individual, that's not really the best and most collaborative way to have a conversation. How about when the vendor says, oh, or when the company says, yeah, I've got to have a pen test, go, why? Have the conversation about why. Have the conversation, well, it's for an asset. Well, let's have a conversation. And by the way, Tawney, those are not crackers. Those are biscuits, proper bloody biscuits, and that's a cup of tea. So I actually don't have my biscuits with me. I'm losing weight, so I'm not munching on half a dozen biscuits every single webinar. Here's the thing: let's actually approach the conversation with biscuits and tea or coffee and donuts or pastries. Let's sit down and talk to the company. How about we play a game? Rather than breaking into them and pissing them off for a week or two, why don't we sit down for a couple of days and have a conversation? Why don't we play Dungeons and Dragons for business? Because you know what, you can have a ton of fun doing it, and you can legally kill off some people. You can say, hey, let's take out the InfoSec person. Let's take out the developer. Let's take out the CISO. What happens? How can you effectively still manage risk? How can you effectively still do incident response? What tools do you have that everybody knows and understands to do these things? And you can do it in a safe environment. You can do it in a no blame environment. And yes, when they've gone through this, you can go, hey, now let's maybe do an assessment to keep your audit folks happy or to keep the requirements happy. But at least everybody's gone in there with a better level of understanding. And we do it. I saw something in there as I'm scrolling through the things. I saw APT thing floating. There we go. Did it hear? Oh, API. There we go. So we talk about languages. Let's have another conversation about language. How often do we go in there and we try to blind people with science and technology? There's acronyms out there I don't even really understand. Somebody came up with, we had EDR, now we've got EDN and a bunch. I have no flipping clue what half this shit means. Why don't we talk in a language that everybody else actually understands? Why don't we walk into the conversations with the smaller organizations and go, hey, I'm here to help. I'm here to be an extra set of eyes for you. I'm here to be an extra set of hands to help you. And when shit hits the fan, I got you back. Why can't we do this? Why can't we have simple conversations? You know, I do a lot of stuff with, there's a whole bunch of conversations about crackers and biscuits. I'm loving this. By the way, best biscuits, two things. One, shortbread biscuits from Sainsbury's or bourbon biscuits, not bourbon biscuits. So if any of you want
bourbons, people, chocolate bourbons. The man talks sense.
Tesco's chocolate bourbons. Actually, well, there's a couple of them. Tesco's ones are always the best. So if you want to bribe me, either it's a Ferrari F40 or a couple of packets of bourbon biscuits, I'll take definitely. Or Girl Scout cookies, but we won't even get into that one. All right, we digress. Here's the other part. Not only do we need to ask more questions, we need to help educate those around us. So the very companies that we're talking to, the very organizations we're working with, how do we help them ask more effective questions? Now, a perfect example is part of what I do on the side on the research is to do with artificial intelligence. And so my job is to help companies actually ask those really nasty ass questions. When a company goes, hi, I've got an AI solution. Yeah, bullshit. Let's ask 10 or 12 questions about what you really think you have. And so I got a list of questions for vendors. And it's something I'm actually going to put up on LinkedIn, and something we'll share as part of the CISO community is what happens. How do you ask the vendors the right questions? Let's arm the very companies that we are meant to be going in front of, how to actually ask the questions, how to sift the bullshit out. The other part of it, We talked about DevSecOps, but let's really embrace it. Let's actually all more effectively work together. The very teams that we have, again, I look at the Cynet folks. I had an amazing conversation with a bunch of the enterprise folks today, and they were talking about, hey, when the larger companies, they're going in, they're not just selling to the IS folks or the IT folks, they're selling to audit and risk and compliance. I'm like, then bring them all together. Let's have a meeting, get everybody in a room, bring the coffee and donuts or the pastries when we're allowed to all be together again. But let's try to get everybody to collaborate more effectively. And I love the initiative that's going on in DevSecOps because it is bringing that entire internal chain. It's basically the macrocosm of a supply chain. I got development, security, and operations is something we're building. It's the same thing with the supply chain. It's something that's being used and being built. So let's mimic and practice what we preach. The other one, share before it's too late. We do it as humans. If something happens, I cry out and I go, there's a problem. Everybody around me become aware of it, but we don't do it in the digital world. We're not good at sharing information or intelligence, often, unfortunately, until it's too late. Exception to the rule fairly recently was FireEye. We all know what happened with SolarWinds, but FireEye put its hand up almost immediately and said, hey, we got a problem. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. Help yourselves to understand. Unfortunately, a couple of others in that whole scenario didn't do that. I get it, Michael. I get, sorry, Michelle, I apologize. Michelle, I get it. It's legal reasons, but you know what? Use back channels and talk to the lawyers and go, look, let's be good custodians. How much can we share? How much information could we impart to those around us? Again, another logical reason for putting a community together with Chatham House rules. At least internally, you can put your hand up and go, hey, just be aware, can't say why, but do me a favor, go check your service for A, B, C, and D. We can at least do something better than we're doing today. This is a biggie. Very often we do not understand our surroundings. It's part of the challenge and part of the frustrations I have is you get these companies that go in selling their solutions, but again, they don't understand. They go, hey, EDR is going to fix everything. Well, it isn't if you don't even know where all the damn assets are. Let's be perfectly honest on that one. Hey, buddy. Those of you who know who I'm saying, hey, buddy, to this. You're all wet and soggy. Welcome to one of my Great Danes. This is Biggie. This is Milo. You can't really see him very much, but he's here. Come here. I have snacks for you. Anyway, Milo. We don't ever always understand our surroundings. And I think that's, again, one of the things from our industry is we need to go in more informed. And we also need to help the organizations become more informed. And we also need to go and say, look, everything that we're putting in is going to reduce the risk. We're not going to solve the problem. We're here to help reduce the risk, make it simpler, make it easier, make it more effective. We're all suffering because we don't have enough resources, especially with enough hands around the place. So what we have to do is make the best of what we have. And we do that by becoming more effective with the resources that we have. We do that by understanding our surroundings more effectively. So that brings me on to the choose wisely. That also brings me on to the fact I've now got biscuit all over my foot. Thanks, buddy. Here's what I mean by choose wisely. And again, this is really imparting more information. So for those of you that are in that CISO or that leadership level or that techie level, this is kind of a bit, you'll understand this. We'll just hit the slides. This is not effective. Let's be perfectly honest. I'm not saying single pane of glass because you can yell at me and probably taser me for that one. But what I am saying is consolidate. Take a look at what you have. Take a look at the network stuff. Take a look at the architectures you have. Take a look at the systems you're using and going, how can I consolidate those more effectively? How can I actually take them and bring them into a more comprehensive picture? How can I actually help my team be more effective? We all know this situation. Not all of us can be 24/7 by 365 on our own. So how do we actually get ourselves some backup? How do we actually bring the technologies into a much more effective, much more useful platform? How do we do this in such a way that when an incident actually happens, you're a little bit more vigilant about it? You're a little bit more effective and you're not waiting for somebody to tell you, hey, you've got a problem. This is not the solution. Not even close to the solution. This is what we would like to call ADHD information overload, even for those of us that have got acronyms. Shit doesn't help. Yes, we've consolidated onto a single pane of glass that you stand no chance of seeing. So how do we disseminate the information? How do we make it more usable and more scalable? And then how do we actually understand who's selling us the technology? Again, this is one of those things that, you know, I look to where we are, I look to what we're doing, and I look at this and I'm like, yep, that's about 2/3 of our industry, unfortunately. So in the words of Colin Chapman, or the late Colin Chapman, for me, I would like to simplify and add lightness. So, you know, you got a couple of slides of me talking about what we're up to. Here's how I look at it. This is actually the stuff that we're doing. To me, way too many acronyms, got to be honest, but it helps people understand if they want the acronym. But for me, you look at the XDR stuff, it's another set of eyes. It is looking at the AV stuff, the endpoint stuff, the deception stuff, and the traffic. And so, look, I got eyes for you. I'm going to do everything for you, but I got eyes for you. And by the way, not only have I got eyes for you, but the response automation for me is like, hey, I got an extra pair of hands for you. Not only am I actually going to be able to consolidate these messages, but I've got an extra pair of hands to help you with it. And then, by the way, when shit hits the fan, we got you back. And it's all there. And not only is it all there, but the other part of it is as well, is let's face it, in an incident, you're the only one that's going to be cool in the head. And you have to be cool in the head. And the only way you become cool in the head is if you actually simplify the message. And not only simplify the message, but you make it easy, ready to understand, you make it digestible. And by the way, you don't have to do it all. A lot of this is automated. So again, look at what you have. It isn't going to be everything for everybody, but it's going to take the best parts of what you have and make it more readable, more usable, make it simpler and easier to understand. And by the way, one of the biggest frustrations I think most of us have in this industry, and it goes to Mario's probably, log properly. How many of you and how many of us, I've had to do it as well. I've had to sit there and go, well, I've got the bill from the vendor and I've got 25 of these. I got 20 of these. I got 30. Oh shit, I went over my data usage. We all remember that. You remember having the early days of cell phone when you only had like a certain amount of data usage and you go over it and your ass gets handed to you because it's like, oh, yes, you went over your data usage. It's the same thing with some of the companies out there. It isn't all you can eat with some of them. And I think that's where I like what I'm up to at the moment is it's like one freaking thing, put it on, have at it, we got you covered. You got to find somebody that can do that. And you got to find somebody that can do it more effectively. Because, again, a lot of dead people I've got on this, I've just realized, the late Sir Terry Pratchett, the 1,000,000 to 1 chance, you know, for those people and for those organizations that still have their head in the sand, unfortunately, that 1,000,000 to 1 crops up 9 times out of 10. It really is one of those when it happens, not if it happens. And I think that's one of the biggest frustrations, again, in our industry. We have to somehow or other talk to a lot of people out there who as humans are treading that fine line between, oh, I'll be fine and absolute, you know, ending up on the Darwin list, let's put it that way. And so we can't carry that into the digital world. The consequences, unfortunately, are becoming much more critical in the physical world. So you get your ass handed to you in the digital world, it's gonna hurt. Now, as we all know, there have been a lot of us standing on stage for the last 25, 30 years. And not everybody's going to be believed. Let's be perfectly honest on this one. But the idea here is to question ourselves and question others. You're all here listening. We're having fun. We're going to have Q&A in a couple of minutes. But for me, this is us introspectively looking at ourselves in the industry and also looking at ourselves inside the cybersecurity organizations that we deal with, inside the smaller organizations, wherever you are and wherever you sit. Challenge, I understand, no matter what I say. Not everybody's going to listen. Some of you will. Some of you will be like, I like that. This is a conversation we have to have. And I accept that. But it is one of those points I put in here. We, as the humans, need to do a little bit more introspective review. Because the technology's there. Let's be honest, we have enough technology to solve these problems. Some of you have probably got tool overload, let's be honest. So the tech is there. It's how do we use it more effectively? How do we simplify the conversation? How do we deal with it? And then when something happens, how can we be more effective in these things? So managed to do that almost in the right amount of time. So quick thank you to the Sync folks for all of those conversations. For those of you that were wondering where that one is, well, so long and thanks for the fish. And I appreciate the conversations. And then, as always, let's have a conversation. So yeah, Felicia's point, tool and dashboard, and you name it, we've got it. And again, it's not effective. I'm going through some of the questions. So let's have a conversation. We've got 15 minutes. Let's have a conversation.
And I'll leave this slide up, folks, just so you got Chris's email there, everybody, so you can reach out. There was a comment that came actually early on in the a little bit earlier on in the chat, and I'd love to just get your thoughts on this, because it was a comment and also a question that was kind of posed to the rest of the group here as well. But it came from Amy. So thank you very much, Amy. You've been very, very active in the chat. A continual frustration for me in this space is something that you mentioned here, Chris, first and foremost, that people think you can be 100% secure. B, that industry best practice is always the best way. If everyone is doing the same thing, then attackers know what you should be doing. Is the approach to do the unexpected what still somehow appeasing your regulatory and compliance requirements? How does one deviate to protect without deviating too far outside the lines?
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting one. So a couple of points on this one. Number one, part of the frustration, it's awesome on the Amy one, part of the frustration I have is there isn't just one set of compliance rules. That's a crazy thing in our industry. I mean, CMMC is about to kind of hit us pretty heavily. You got European stuff, you got GDPR, you got the NIST stuff, you got the ISO stuff, you got the FedRAMP stuff, you got PCI, you got High Trust, and that's only a few of them. I actually have a slide somewhere that's got like 25 or 30 of them on them. So one, we're all not doing the same thing. Everybody's gone off on their other. Secondly, I would love it if people even did a couple of the basic things. Like, I don't know, get rid of 3389 off the internet and Telnet maybe, and a few others. I would love it if people would actually deal with some password management. But at the very least, it'd be nice to actually people to consolidate a few things. So first and foremost, unfortunately, people aren't doing the right thing, or aren't all doing the same thing. Secondly, here's the interesting part. Security vendors aren't standing still. So even if you all, let's just say we all go into the one platform, there is a level of expectation, even in our industry, that we're not all doing the same thing. There's a level of that, hey, how do we become more effective in these things? Did we just end the slideshow? I'm confused.
I did, yes.
Awesome, cool. I'm like, there's a level of expectation in this that we're obviously not going to stand still. So perfect example. So from a Cynet standpoint, we've added deception. Now, for those of you that know my background, I've got a fairly lengthy deception and intel background. So if you look at that and you're like, how do we continue to evolve? So if we're all using, let's just say we're all using Cynet, and we will evolve to add in maybe more OT stuff. We will evolve to add in more deceptive technology. We'll evolve to maybe put more networking stuff. So we understand it's a chess game with the attackers. We understand it's a chess game with the adversary. So deception to me plays a big part of that. How do we build more effective deception? How do we camouflage a minefield inside your organization so somebody's going to trip over it, using the endpoint tech, using the network tech, using the MDR stuff that we have? How do we make that more effective and a single system that just works more effectively? So I think that I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that. And then how do we continue to make sure that we stay as close as we can to the head of the game? We do our own intelligence gathering. Let's be honest. We monitor, we watch the watchers. I mean, I think that's the other part of it. And we have to keep ourselves honest in that one. Some are doing better than others. There's some companies out there that have no clue that they're a target. And there are other organizations that are like, yeah, we know we're a prime target. What are we doing to watch ourselves? And what are we doing to watch the adversaries and the attackers so that we can change our tactics? And that's a tough one because you'll play catch up. And we all know from an adversarial standpoint, the attacker's going to change their tactics on a regular basis. So you go, okay, what are the general plays? How am I going to know that somebody's on the inside? The biggest one. What's the tell? Is it data? Is it traffic? Is it user movement? Is it behavior? Is it analytics? Is it deception? Is it which one of these conversations is going to help me understand who's on the inside? And then part of the reason we're doing what we're doing is when you actually know about it, let's make it easy and simple to go through the incident response plan, to go through the recovery side and try and do something about it. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, we've got to do a lot in our own side. And, again, part of the reason I'm now hanging out where I'm hanging out is I'm kind of eating my own damn dog food on this one. So it's kind of cool.
Another comment here that I'd like to actually get your perspective on, if possible, sir. So Rajiv mentions, just as my chat goes, there's a lot of logging done at the application or OS level. How many or how often do you see, how often do the same at infrastructure level, e.g. physical server and consoles? And are there any tools that you'd recommend utilizing, e.g. Redfish?
I saw the red. I'm like, kind of works. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of app level stuff. I'd argue. I mean, you go back in the day. So let's put some of this gray stuff to use. Once upon a time, we had 3 layers, and we actually were really good at logging all of them: the web layer, the application layer, and the database layer. We did a good job, network layer as well. We did a good job of looking at all of that. The focus has become more and more on the application layer, and unfortunately, that network and the server logging has unfortunately become separated, and we do need to bring those back together. The problem is, if you use some of the well-known companies out there, and I have to be careful what I say now that I've actually labeled as Cynet, and I can't yell at a few of them, but some of the very well-known ones that are out there, you'll end up paying through the nose if you start watching and monitoring everything. Now, there are some where it'll ingest all of the logs, but we do need to get a better idea as to, it's kind of the reason we do the network stuff, we do the user stuff. Anything that we have enough, anything that we basically have an agent on, we'll pull the logs from and understand it. So are there any tools I utilize? Yeah, I utilize quite a few. At home here now, we're actually just putting in the stuff that we own. I just joined them like 2 weeks ago, so I got to actually get my ass in gear and finish it off. But I've always had PF. I've had a whole bunch of log monitoring, and then I do a bunch of extended graphing and architecture. But I also use a bunch of Intel stuff. I got, I'm fortunate with the Hillbilly side of the world, the research company. We got 6Gil. We have a whole bunch of darknet searching stuff that we use to figure out who's targeting us. But the infrastructure is a big one. I mean, the logs are there. That's not gone away. There's firewall logs all over the place. There's server logs. There's app logs. There's virtualization logs. You need to bring as much of that as you can manage effectively in and go, let's make some sense of it. Again, kind of the reason I like the stuff I'm doing. Well, yeah, okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Tony says a really, really good point. And again, so, I'll throw the Cynet hat on for a second. As part of the reason we've consolidated event log monitoring, user behavior, identity, and a bunch of other things. There's a whole bloody reason we've done that. What you have to understand, and this is I think is a core one, we're not going out there going, we've got everything covered. It's like, look, we're going to take the best and we're going to simplify the hell out of it and present it in a way that we believe is meaningful to most organizations. It really is what it comes down to. Otherwise, you end up with this entire rack of gear, and you got to go, well, I've got to monitor that and look at that, and that's going to go, and that's got to consolidate, and I got to. It's unwieldy. It's crazy.
I don't envy you. I really don't envy you guys. Okay, a couple of questions coming in here. So first one actually it's related to Cynet. Is Cynet 360 able to model all or subset of MITRE threats?
Good question. Nobody can monitor all of MITRE threats. Let's just be perfectly honest. If I said it could, then I need to be tasered. Subset, absolutely. Yeah. If anybody claims to be able to monitor all of MITRE threats, I want to know who they are and I want to know where they are, because I'm going to gut them with a spork.
Before I ask you another question that's coming from the audience here, I actually want to address something that's been coming up often, and really hoping for you to continue your honest dissection, quite frankly. What can security executives do to demand more from their vendor partners? There's been a lot of talk about vendors needing to play a bit more of a partner role in understanding the needs and wants of the organization and their clients, rather than just trying to get them to buy whatever they want. You kind of addressed this a little bit earlier on, but what would you recommend InfoSec leaders do to really demand more from their partners?
First and foremost, I think they probably need to understand them a little bit more, which is on us. Again, that's part of the reason we're doing the CISO, that we're actually going to build a community. And I've got to be honest, we're going to arm them. I want CISOs to question more and believe less. I mean, I think that's crucial. And I think they need to look in the mirror a little bit more. When you get invited out for a steak dinner by let's say, a dark intelligence company that might claim to be the #1 on the planet, you might want to question that. You might want to question why, rather than having the dinner and going, oh, you're perfect, rather actually go, okay, what have you got? How is it working? And what is it doing? And what's it missing? So for me, the CISO needs to be armed more effectively, first and foremost. I think part of the other thing with the CISO is we, the industry, need to come together much more effectively and help them communicate. So you think about it, the CISO's role is to communicate up, down, and sideways. So they are going to go talk to the CFO on the finance stuff and go, hey, this is what we want to do 2021, 2022. They got to go to the manufacturing folks and go, hey, here's how we need to separate and segment. They need to go talk to the board and go, here's how we are managing risk. Because think about it, the board is now directly responsible on the risk side, including security. So for me, we, the industry, need to be better at how to arm the CISO about a risk conversation. We don't need to come in and go, we got you 100% covered, because the CISO needs to taser or gut us with a spork. But you need to go in and go, hey, with what we have, with the tools, the technology, and the human engagement in that technology, we can help you understand risk, recognize it, and then put a plan in place to deal with it. I deal with a bunch of the guys over at Secure Studio. Ryan and Evan and those guys are absolutely amazing. They've got that whole risk score, and it's something that we built some of the stuff into the Cynet side of the world as well. Understanding that risk on a score is no different than we understand how risky we are by our credit score rating. We know what impacts it, we know what hits it, and we know how to make it, and we know how to improve it. So if you simplify it and you go, hey, you tell me you've got 1,000 machines, I only see 800. Where are the other 200? Of those 800 machines I see, this is the patch, this is this, these are the problems, these are the issues. I can understand risk. The CISO can now decide effectively with the CFO whether they want to put more physical security in place, how much more education they're going to do, whether they're going to spend more on monitoring or logging or incident response. The other part that we arm the CISO with, honestly, is the physical and also the technology, is the not technology stuff. So remember, policies, procedures, and controls. How do we help them become more effective? You never want to be looking at your incident response plan and going, hey, I wish I had it the moment half of your computers are ransomware. You want to have done it, tested it, tried it. It's the whole reason for doing the Dungeons and Dragons. It's like, let's go have some fun. Let's play D&D for computers. So you really want to try and help them that way. And again, people, process, and technology. How do we educate the people? Not just so that we can pass the tick in the box on the standards. Once a year, congratulations, you've passed the standard, but you've done sod all to help the human. Let's continually train them, and train, not test. I don't want to try to find out if my staff are going to click shit every single week. It's no fucking use to man, not beast. But what I want to do is help them look after their kids, look after their grandparents, help them understand the world. They're going to have to click on shit. Let's help them understand how to make a risk-based decision on whether they should click it or whether they kick it off to the IT team going, I think this is a scam. That's the simple things we need to help the CISOs do. And give them back some time. Let's be perfectly honest. This goes back to the research. Part of the reason for the Cynet stuff is we become that extra pair of hands, because you haven't got to go out and flip in and hire another half a dozen people to look after our shit, for crying out loud.
Thank you very much. I asked for your honest dissection. We got it. What is your opinion on continuous breach attack services? Do you think it's worthwhile building it in-house?
I think it's good if you are at a point in your maturity where you can effectively use it. So that's my caveat on that one. So I actually don't mind it, because again, if you think about it, if you do an annual assessment, and remember, there's a difference between assessment, pen testing, and red teaming. If you do an annual assessment, in other words, somebody stands on the outside or the inside and throws rocks to see what happens. Great, you know what's going on 1 hour of one day in 1 year. Congratulations, that's all you know. Everything else changes, let's be honest. So doing it continually, it's nice, but only if you can do something with that information. If your system is mature enough that you can go, hey, I like that. Hey, dev team, you just released something into production that's got a cross-site scripting flaw. Can you guys work it through your process? If you can do that, I think that's fantastic. But if you are not at a maturity level yet where you take those assessments and you actually do something with them, then it's a waste of flipping time. And again, I think to me, it's one of those things that where it's, I don't want people doing a pen test. until we even know that they have the controls in place. It's a waste of freaking time. Let alone red team. I'm bollocks to doing a red team. You shouldn't be doing a red team until your staff and your team can kick ass and they're writing the regulations that everybody else is following. It's a waste of time and money. I'd rather take all that money, bring you in and say, let's sit down and do Dungeons and Dragons for 2 or 3 days. We'll do a day with leadership and the board. We'll do a day with the tech staff and we'll do a day with users. Let's run a scenario. Fred, you just lost your computer. Frida, you just plugged in USB drive. Little Johnny over there, you just clicked a link. Let's work it through. And by the way, you just bought another company. How can we do these scenarios in a safe environment, learn from them, then let's do something about it.
Thank you very much. Leslie makes a great point. You're the kind of speaker we need to see live. However, Leslie, that way we wouldn't see the doggies. So you know, rough and smooth, right? We can
probably travel with him. It depends where live. Leslie, depends where you are. We have an RV-ish, although I say we have an RV. The RV is currently, out of the 200 days we've owned it, it's spent 150 days in the shop. Yay! Don't buy an RV, people, especially one from Camping World. Yay!
I love it. And then final question before we wrap things up here. Tamara asks, how would you automate closing the time between detection, identification, and response?
Oh, that's easy. I love that one because yeah, that's a mess at the moment. All right, I'll kind of throw the Cynet hat on for a second on this one. To me, that is one area where you do need to bring stuff into a more effective interface. Because you do want to see everything. You want to have it automated. You want to see a lot. Perfect example is playbooks. That's actually a really, really good way of putting it. So it's simple. You know, Jason, I send you an email. It's got a payload. Sorry, we've had a bad day and I need your cup of tea. So I send you an email. You click on it. Well, if you've got something effective, then it's going to be like, Chris has sent him a payload. Bastard. Now we're going to take Jason's computer. We're going to run a couple of AV scripts. Oh, that didn't clean it. All right, now we're going to isolate Jason's computer. By the way, Jason's computer was talking to 4 other computers. Let's make sure they're isolated. Let's put another rule on the firewall. Keep that hairy bastard out of the damn network. That should all be automated. That stuff should happen, or at least you should be given the opportunity to automate it. So this is where I love the idea. You know, we've got that nice little screen that I put up there that shows here's the automated path. You shouldn't have to go, oh God, it's Jason's computer. Hey, where's Jason? Which bit of the, oh, he's over that bit of the network. Hey, who does Jason talk to? And you got to go into the damn computer and pull out the stuff. And then by that time, it's already infected 100 other ruddy systems. So for me, it's that speed and time to response. And a lot of that, I think, honestly, is in the playbook side of it. And a lot of that is in that automated response side of it. So I think what you end up doing is you look at some of those automated tools and go, how many of them run effective playbooks? How many of those playbooks build into the tech I have, or can I consolidate the tech I have into something more effective? And then how do I use it more effectively? Because I can't deal with everything. I have to have something do the work for me. So pull in the logs, pull in the endpoint part of it, pull in the behavior analytics, pull in some of the network stuff, and let it do its job effectively. Again, I'll throw the Cynet hat on. We got something pretty cool. Go throw rocks at it. We'll have fun with it.
Love it. Well, thank you very much. Well, they're all organising a road trip by the looks of things down to Austin, Texas, and they're going to invite you to come and speak. So looking forward to that.
And I'll bring the whiskey as well. We'll bring the whiskey too. I'll bring
the chocolate bourbons as well. Bring the chocolate bourbons.
Tell me about it. Good point on that
one. Oh, he's got me getting all nostalgic now. Right. Okay. Well, sorry, folks. Before I lose my professionalism, thank you very, very much. I implore everybody to join me in a virtual round of applause for Chris again. Please use the chat.